like fire. Nemo's got the mic dressed in satire. Andrew in the booth, spinning the wheel. Cameras rolling, it's all surreal. Who's the guest today? Who's the guest today? Record spinning, always winning. Rykus, Nemo, questions pinning. Andrew called the shot, don't miss the frame. Hobby hooligan, what's your name?
What's up, all you hobby hooligans? I'm your host, Rykus, owner of Captain's Comics and comic book enthusiast, and I'm here with another episode of Ashtabula Hobby Talk. Nemo is unable to make it here today, but I got the man behind the cameras here. This is Andrew. Want to say hi, Andrew?
Hello there. I am Andrew, not president of Amigos Radio Club Ashtabula. I'm the secretary, actually, and welcome to Ashtabula Hobby Talk.
So, you have a lot of hobbies too, and there's one particular hobby that I find a little bit more interesting than most.
Oh, yeah?
You do the bees, you do the other things, but radioactive artifacts.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Well, I mean, it's actually kind of like a big thing, because you've got like your antiques, you've got things that were made to be radioactive on purpose, you've got things that were made to be radioactive just as a byproduct of what they are. You want me to just like start from, I don't know, how I started into that interesting little hobby?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of interesting because I don't know anybody. You're probably the only person around here that collects radio stuff, right?
Yeah. Actually, I've only met, I think, one other person around here that I've actually met in person that I know that does it, and I don't think they actually live around here. They came up for D-Day, the event. This is like August, I think.
Right.
That they have all those like artifacts from World War II and stuff, and a lot of the compasses, the aircraft gauges and stuff. Those can be radioactive, and they were doing what I was doing. They were looking for them. So,
why don't we explain what the radioactive is first?
like, why these things are radioactive?
Sure.
Well, there's kind of like two different types of artifacts. Like, there's a bunch of different types, obviously, but there's some that are radioactive on purpose, and there's some that are radioactive as a byproduct of just how they are. So, you ever see that like frosted? They sometimes call it Vaseline glass at like thrift shops and stuff. It's like got a green tint to it.
Sure.
That was made with uranium. Very, very, very small amount of uranium. That stuff is, most of it is barely radioactive.
I see a lot of collectors with that, with black lights going to Goodwills and trying to find that stuff.
Yeah, that's the more common stuff, because you don't really need a radiation detector to find that. You just need a black light. Go on wherever your shop of choice, buy a little $10 black light. You go around, you shine it at all the glass, and once you get good at it, you don't even really need a black light. You can just like hold it up to the light. Oh, yep, that's got a green tint to it. So there's that kind of stuff. There's like that. Similar to that is like Fiestaware, like the brightly colored dishes and stuff. They used to make stuff that was radioactive. I think that started in like the 1920s. Was the actual Fiesta branded stuff, but we've been using that, like the pigments and stuff like that, for a long time. Obviously, we don't use it anymore. And so you've got stuff that's radioactive just because it is, because they used it for like a color or a dye or whatever. And then you've got other stuff. Now, people hear the word radiation, they automatically, it's kind of a word that's like, oh, that's radioactive. That's, it's not good for you, whatever.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, if you have a piece of dishware that's radioactive, Fiestaware, uranium glass, some of it uses thorium, it's not going to hurt you unless you grind up the pieces and eat it. And at that point, you've got bigger problems because you just ate a bunch of glass. This other stuff, this is the kind of stuff where you have to be like, okay, I'm not handling an antique that's, slightly radioactive and it's like fun or interesting, and it still is, but there have to be some considerations, because you ever heard the story of the Radium Girls?
No.
No? Well, anybody who knows anything about history like that, I think that was in like the 20s or 30s. You ever see those like travel clocks with the numbers that are hand painted? They glow in the dark.
Yeah.
Those, they are hand painted. They were painted by primarily women that were in these big, factories, and they would put the brushes in their mouths and stuff to like
Oh
make the
wow.
points of the brushes fine, and they were putting this paint on their like faces because it was cool. It was glow in the dark, and I guess I should explain that paint a little bit. Those like little stars you can put on your wall. You stick them with a piece of putty that like
Sure,
glow in the
they
dark.
got like that
It's like
reflective things too.
yeah, it's I think it's like zinc sulfide is
Mm-hmm.
what they say that's in them, like the glow powder. Well, think of that, but you mix in a highly radioactive element. In this case, radium. So the radium makes it glow not forever because it destroys the pigment. That's why they don't glow anymore usually. Um, but back then it was like they just glow, like that was it. Period. So it was kind of a cool thing, a novel thing, and the radiation wasn't really super well understood by everybody back then, and these women got very sick. A lot of them died in bad ways.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so you have to take that into consideration when you collect these things because obviously if you know enough to find it, you also know enough to be like, hey, that's dangerous. I shouldn't crack the front of this aircraft gauge open and lick the inside. But yeah, it's just a cool. It's like these artifacts. They're cool looking. They've got history to them, and it's also interesting because people don't know much about radiation, even in the modern day, really. And it's a cool science thing. There are little like science experiments you can do with it, but mostly it's like, hey, I've got antiques that are radioactive. This was from the 40s, and this was hand painted by somebody, and most of them that you can find, especially like in thrift shops and stuff, they're pretty safe. The stuff that is dangerous is very hard to find, especially around here. But if you go on like eBay or anywhere else really online, you can find some interesting stuff. So,
You
uh,
talking about stuff from Chernobyl or?
oh well, okay. So thankfully, and some people get annoyed by how the import restrictions and stuff are around this stuff. Yes, this stuff is regulated. In my opinion, it should be to some extent because there are idiotic people that get into this hobby and do dangerous stuff and post it on the internet and whatever. You cannot ship stuff that is noticeably radioactive, especially through customs. They screen it, they will find it, and they will not assume you're using it, for nefarious purposes. Because, like, what are you going to do with a radioactive aircraft gauge? The only thing you could do really is basically what I'm saying is you can't send stuff that is so radioactive you could actually hurt people in the short term with
That
it
makes
through the
sense.
mail. I myself have purchased a compass, or I've purchased a couple of things from like eBay or whatever. Um, this compass was from the Vietnam or no Korean War era, which is when they were making them the uh, hottest, I guess you'd say. That you can get through the U.S. Postal Service. 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna bat an eye at it because even those things are not crazy. Like this is going to hurt you if you stand near it for 10 seconds kind of radioactive. That's horrific, and you're not going to be able to find that stuff around here. But certain considerations have to be made, like, hey, I probably shouldn't import, you know, small pieces of plutonium into my country. There was a guy in Australia that actually did that completely innocently. It was just a collection, like he wanted to collect the periodic table of elements, and there was like 10 years of jail time being held over his head. I don't know the full specifics to that story, but I know that he got out of it, thank God, because like I said, there was no ill intent there. But it's a weird hobby. It's not really a gray area, I would say. You just have to be mindful. So
Right.
yeah,
It's very interesting, but very dangerous too, I think.
it can be. Like I said, you just have to be smart about it. Really, like don't go sleeping with a radioactive compass under your pillow.
What's
Really,
the craziest thing you got?
craziest thing I've got. Uh, Probably that compass I told you about. That how do I put this into terms that I'm not trying to be like smart, arrogant, whatever. I'm just like how the general person doesn't usually understand. Like, oh, if I say this is what was the number? It was like if I say this is 320 microsieverts per hour on contact, that doesn't really mean anything to you or most people, right?
No.
Um, that's about, and this again it varies. This is just a general term. they say a chest X-ray is about 100 microsieverts. As soon as they click that button, that's about 3 chest X-rays per hour.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's, again, don't sleep with it under your pillow. It lives in my basement in an airtight container because actually the primary issue with that kind of stuff isn't the radiation, just like, you know, that it's letting off. That's kind of like a secondary thing. With all those radium things, it's radon you got to worry about. You know, I'm sure you know what radon is. Like, you know,
Sure.
builds up in basements and stuff. I think it's like one of the primary causes of lung cancer. Like,
Sure.
you know, you never smoked a day in your life. You know, you're 45 and you get diagnosed with lung cancer. You probably got radon to blame for that. Um, so you got to watch that, make sure it doesn't build up. I've seen incredibly like large collections of these compasses that are, I would almost say it's excessive with how many some of these people have. But this one individual I'm thinking of in particular I saw online had a ventilated cabinet that like vented out the top of their garage or whatever. That's pretty extreme. If you have a couple of these in your house, you know, just leave them in a sealed container, not a plastic bag. Plastic doesn't really block it. It can kind of limit how much radon comes off of these things, but it's a, you know, it's an invisible gas. It gets through plastic, whatever. I keep mine in glass jars in a little ammo can, like a steel ammo can.
Okay.
So yeah, really that's the most active thing I have, and it's, again, I wouldn't really call it dangerous. You just have to be aware, like, hey, this is in my basement in the corner of my house, and even still, if I walk over to the corner of my house on the like living area above the basement, and I put my little detector on the floor, I can actually still measure a slight increase in radiation. Not a dangerous amount, by far, not a dangerous amount. It's literally like a couple extra counts, like clicks on my little device per second. Not even worth thinking about, really, because there are houses that are more radioactive than that. Like if you live in a brick house or out west, yeah. So
You mentioned click on your device. You have like some kind of gauge
yeah,
you
yeah.
have?
So you want me to show you?
You have it on you?
I do.
Sure.
So this little device here, you want to? Oh, you're on me. Okay. This little device, it's called a radio code, and I don't know if this is gonna pick up on the mic here. It just clicks. You know, people, they hear those clicks, they think of like a Geiger counter. It's not technically a Geiger counter. It's called a spectrum analyzer, and that isn't really going to mean anything to most people. Basically, it just little impulse of radiation. Try not to get too technical here. Little impulse of radiation goes into the detector. It makes a flash of light in the detector, and then my little device measures that flash, and it can tell how strong that little, you know, particle wave of whatever radiation that it was. It only really works on gamma rays, which are the most damaging. It can tell you how powerful the single incident was, and it can tell you actually, if you get enough of these little clicks, what isotope it's coming from. So that's how you can say, hey, I know this is radium, I know this is uranium, I know this is thorium, because they have these, again, trying not to get too technical.
Got like a signature.
Yes, exactly. And this little device that I keep on my person, it's pretty neat. It's like a sixth sense, I would say, and it sounds a little bit weird, but also this is one of the reasons radiation took so long to discover, is because it's totally invisible, and in the levels that it is normally occurring in nature, it would never hurt you. So, you know, people don't just drop dead all the time from radiation, because they don't.
Right.
So how it took us that long to detect it? Well, detectors like this are a fairly modern invention. You know, 15, 20, 30 years ago, they were, you know, the size of a shoebox, and you couldn't carry one around on your belt. Well, they're not cheap, granted, still, even today, they're not super cheap, but it's a cool little thing. And, you know, people are like, oh, you know, you have peace of mind. You want to know the amount of times I've actually found a radioactive anything out in where I'm not expecting to find one? Once. And I've had this thing for like 2.5 years. It was actually at my day job, a person that had undergone a nuclear medicine procedure, and they were significantly radioactive.
The person was.
Yeah, I think it's usually for like cancer, like
Wow.
some kind of cancers. And yeah, it's an interesting thing. You know, you're not gonna walk up to someone and be like, "Hey, you're radioactive. You shouldn't be out." You know, in public. Just leave them be. You know, they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with. There's a reason why their doctors decided that was preferable to whatever disease they have. It's just a neat little thing, and I like to go find antiques with it. And you find other people that have similar interests. Like I said, one gentleman I met at the D-Day event a couple months ago actually had the same device I had.
Neat.
Yep, I heard or rather, I should say, my girlfriend heard the clicks. I was like, hey, wait, what? I thought you turned the clicks off because you can, you turn that off because that's kind of conspicuous, right? People might get the wrong idea, like, whoa, they're finding radioactive stuff at my antique shop. It's like I said, there's kind of a stigma, if you want to call it that. I didn't have my clicks on, and then she heard clicks from something, and she was like, oh, hey, look, that person has one too, and that was a pretty cool little experience.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
So is there any truth to the fact that cell phones have any radiation? Because I remember a long time ago when cell phones first came out,
Right.
people were like, "Oh, you can't have your cell phone in your pocket because
Right, it's gonna like microwave your brain or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Well, not like first of all, just flat out, is your cell phone gonna hurt you? No. Just get that out of the way because, and again, this is difficult without getting too into the weeds, but basically, all you really need to know is in the electromagnetic spectrum, there's radio waves, microwaves, like your microwave, like your food or your phone,
Sure.
visible light, and ultraviolet light. And then on the very end of that scale is where radiation comes in, like the kind of radiation my detector would be putting out. Because gamma radiation, X-ray radiation, it's actually a type of light. We just can't see it because it's way way outside of our field of vision or range of vision. You know how you get a sunburn when you're outside?
Yep.
If you are worried about your cell phone cooking your brain, and you also don't wear sunscreen while you're outside, the sun is going to give you skin cancer way, way, way infinitely before you even feel the tiniest bit of heat from your cell phone or any sort of radio transmitter for that matter. The only thing radio waves can do to you is heat you up. Like if you somehow rigged a microwave to work with the door open, that would be bad. Because obviously if it can heat up your food, what's it going to do to you? But the power levels and the frequencies that your cell phones and your wireless routers and everything use, so much lower, so much less powerful. There's a reason why it's regulated like that. Like you wouldn't want to go stick your head up close to a cell phone tower antenna right in front of it,
Yeah.
but standing at the base of it.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, like you got to understand there's a reason why people don't just drop dead from carrying these things all the time.
Right.
People are worried about them making you sick and all that, and to people like that, the only thing I can really say is educate yourself, and if you want to actually learn the truth, you will find it, and it will you can better yourself by educating yourself. But if you want to remain ignorant to that and you still believe it's the problem, maybe you're the problem. That's all I can really say without getting aggressive with it. But yeah, so
Yeah, because I remember that was a big deal back when cell phones were first coming out. Everyone was kind of scared about that.
right.
But what about meteorites, like space rocks?
Space rocks, like radiation and stuff from those.
Yeah, they should have spaces like radioactive, right?
Well, so with that, space isn't really radioactive in itself. There's just no air to stop radiation because many people don't actually know this. One of the best ways to block radiation is distance, air, because even though we can't see it, there's lots of stuff in this free space right here. Radiation doesn't like that. Radiation hits it, it dissipates, it does all the things that it does. That's why I can shield myself from the radiation from that compass. Most of the shielding actually comes from the air in between me and the compass. It's not the glass jars, it's not the steel can that shields it, it's air. So when you don't have that, radiation can travel. I don't think it's functionally forever because it will still dissipate over time, but that's why people on the ISS, for instance, they get a large dose of radiation because they're just outside the atmosphere and they're just on the edge-ish, no, not the edge, but they're outside of that protective bubble that the Earth gives them. So space itself is not radioactive, but radiation propagates way farther in space, and there's a lot more of it because the sun kicks off a lot.
Right.
Meteorites and stuff like that, those aren't typically an issue as far as like, if they land somewhere, they're full of, rare earth metals. Uranium is probably one of them, but like I said, in nature, radiation isn't almost ever so concentrated that it could hurt you or really even be noticeable without special equipment. Because like you can see videos of people, going out west in the US or like in Germany or a lot of those places where uranium was mined, where there's lots of natural deposits of it. And it's very detectable with one of these little detectors. You just, put it on a stick, hold it near the ground, and you'll say, oh, it's clicking. Why is it clicking? Oh, because there's a natural uranium vein there. That's because they mined it there. But like a meteorite or something is not going to have a concentration of that to be harmful, nowhere near being harmful. It could be detectable, but you don't really have to worry about that.
Very interesting.
It would be more cool if you just found a meteorite. Like, oh, hey, this is a meteorite. Is it
Right.
going to hurt me with radiation? No, it's probably made of iron and nickel and cobalt and all those other more common things. So, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this?
I mean, I've been kind of a science nerd for a while, so I'd say 2 or 3 years, probably. Because this little device here, I'll just come out with it. This was like, I think, 300 and something bucks. So that's, it's not cheap. And I got this before I was working, so that's, that's also a thing that had to be taken into account. Devices like this, like I said, are fairly recent, thing on the market, so you don't have to get something this fancy to use it, but I didn't really want to get some, cheap $30 Geiger counter on Amazon because I liked the things this can do. You can do GPS mapping with this, so you can leave it in your pocket. It uses your smartphone. And you can measure radiation as a function of distance. So like it put a pin on the map, like say the count rate is this here, and then you keep walking and it puts another one down, another one, and so on. So that kind of kept me out of the hobby, mostly just because I was stubborn and didn't want to get the cheap hardware. But I'd say 2 or 3 years. Because like I said, you don't need one of these to find radioactive stuff in a, antiques mall. You can go on Amazon and get a $30 Geiger counter or get a blacklight or whatever. So, yeah.
And last question is, what was that the thing that got you into it?
Uh,
What was that the final thing that like, this is pretty neat. I think I'm gonna
what made me like pull the trigger on the device or get into the hobby in general?
the hobby in general.
Um, well, to be honest, and this is I'm not gonna like get political or anything about this because it's just really a fact of the matter, but people are inherently scared of radiation because of the things that it has done throughout history. You talk about World War II, you talk about Chernobyl and all of these, incidents that have happened over the history, especially in the 60s. And it is a very scary thing. It can be a very scary thing. Radiation is horrific in the things it can do to something, alive or not, right? That inherent energy, that power that you come with having something that's radioactive or, well, that's called the atomic age when we, split the atom. What was one of the first things we did with it was make bombs.
Of course, that's our instinct is
Yeah,
weaponry.
right. It sucks, right?
Yeah.
And that has given radiation a very, I don't even know if bad name is the right word because it's true, right?
Yep.
Like it's dangerous.
Microwaves was made by the army first,
Yeah, right. Like it's always going to come as a weapon first, unfortunately, because that's how people are.
unfortunately.
Yeah, but coming away from that, there are so many things you can do with these, these rocks. Like what's the one quote that I heard from a content creator I watch was, trying to like explain radiation or nuclear power or whatever in the most simple way possible. We have these magic rocks that will kill you if you get too close to them, but if you put a bunch of them together inside a special power plant, you get energy out of what seems to be magic, right? Like you put these rocks together, they get hot because they're close to each other, and you can make electricity from that. If you do it wrong, you get Chernobyl. If you do it right, you get the cleanest, safest, and that's actually what a lot of people don't realize, safest form of energy that we've ever really invented. Because nuclear power it's not cheap, granted, because you have to do it right. Otherwise, again, Chernobyl. Um, You have solutions like, fossil fuels, gas, oil, coal, whatever your opinions on them, they're not efficient. Taking away the environmental factor completely away from that. They're not efficient, and they are finite, right? Now, nuclear fuel is finite too, but you have other solutions like solar, wind, whatever. Those are really expensive to produce. You don't actually really think about it. Those big wind turbine blades, they're hard to make, and they're expensive to make. And after, all is said and done with a nuclear plant, you have these, bundles of fuel, these pellets that, when they're spent, they're, very dangerous, right? If you're near them, what do you do with them? You dig a big hole, you put them in the hole, you backfill the hole with concrete, and then nothing happens. They're not liquid. They're not, the green glowing goo you see in The Simpsons. They're ceramic pellets. And that stays in the ground or in storage functionally forever because, it's dangerous. You go near it.
Right.
You can reprocess them for other things, like, all the spacecraft that don't have solar panels, they use spent nuclear fuel as their, power source. It's still hot, right? You can get energy off of that. And all of these things coming together, all of these amazing things that this technology can do, and people are scared of it. For a lot of the time, good reason, but that's not because it's inherently dangerous like people think it is. It's because they don't know enough about it to understand it. The amount of people that have actually lost their lives over the course of history because of nuclear power is, there's no comparing it to the amount of people that have lost their lives in industrial accidents, installing solar panels, installing wind turbines, working in coal and natural gas plants.
Right.
So, yeah, it's the way of the future, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion who know about it.
Sure.
And knowing about it myself makes it easier for me to understand. And also, my dad works at a nuclear power plant, so I like to know how it works and these little interesting little antiques that you can find at places. They're like, hey, this is, a piece of history, but it's also an important reminder that. Okay, we're back. In the middle of my rant, Windows decided it had some more important stuff to do than keep recording, which is classic for, Windows. But
Microsoft.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep, we love it.
Technologies.
Yeah. I guess to put a pin in that, because I was getting a little off topic, and that's, or not off topic, but like rambling, I guess I would say. I try not to do that. It's a really cool hobby. It's very interesting from a scientific perspective. And as far as history and stuff and where we've been and where we're going, these little interesting little antiques are, I feel like they're a really good way to educate people because they see this cool, dishware, like, someone like me, younger generation collecting dishware. That's kind of interesting, right? Like not usual. Why are you collecting this? Oh, it's radioactive. Oh my God, it's radioactive? Hang on. It's radioactive, but let me tell you why it is. Let me tell you why it's not dangerous. And let me tell you why they used to do it like that. Because the Fiesta ware stuff, they just did that because it was a cool color. That's literally the only reason why Fiesta used uranium in their dishware. It's because it made a very vibrant orange.
I thought you said green.
Oh, well, that's the glass. So you've got the dishware that's
Okay.
like ceramic glazed with that red color. Have you ever seen like a red-orange Fiesta ware?
I don't see colors.
Oh, right.
Not like you or anybody else.
Okay,
but
well,
I see colors very, very differently.
Okay, well, basically you've got the glass that's green, and then you've got the pottery that's glazed in like a very vibrant red-orange. They just did that because of the color. That's literally the only reason. And then in the 40s, the government confiscated all their uranium. They stopped doing that. And then in the late 40s, early 50s, I think, that color came back, and they were using depleted uranium after that. Because the government's like, we got all the useful stuff out of this. You guys can have it back. But it's a cool hobby, and
all right.
it helps educate people.
All right.
So
to sum it up from your rant, I
Thank you.
take it that your dad works at a nuclear plant, and you were interested in what your dad did, and that spiked your hobby.
Yeah, I'd say so. That
Okay.
combined with like just the scientific interest in general. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. Awesome. That
Yeah.
was very interesting.
Thanks for letting me ramble.
No problem. That's what this hobby, Ashtabula Hobby Talk's all about.
Yeah.
Showing off your hobby and telling people what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And speaking of hobbies, there's going to be a biggest toy show in Ohio called the Great American Toy Show, and that's going on this weekend in Dayton, Ohio. Well, Xenia, close to Dayton,
Mm.
and I'll be setting up there. And if you know the neighborhood around here, Robot Zero Tony is going to be there, and Adam's action figure is going to be there, Adam Sable. So it's going to be awesome. Come check it out if you it's short notice. I mean, but it's this weekend. So if you knew about it, then check it out. We got people flying in from Europe going to be there,
Oh
and
wow,
those are just people buying stuff. I mean,
that's
there's
awesome.
over 700 vendors. So if you're looking for a toy or some collectible thing that you had as a kid,
Hmm.
chances are you're going to find it there. So it's an amazing. You'll spend the whole day looking through stuff.
That's awesome.
So that's going on Saturday in Xenia. Check it out. If you don't know where it's at, my comic book Facebook page, Captain's Comics, will be there. Just look it up there, and we'll post about it. Get the address and all that. And then we're close to, we got like what, 50 subscribers?
50 something subscribers. Yeah, we got this. We've been advertising it in all of our episodes thus far. Captain's Comics T-shirt, any size you want, any color printing. We got this for our hundredth, subscriber, and then we also have this Wednesday night joke net coffee mug, which is
Limited edition.
yeah, limited edition, even more so now because the repeater that we got here, 146895, is no longer on the air. Nemo touched on that the last couple
Sure did.
episodes. Unfortunately, the whole thing with that kind of sucks, but we move on, and these mugs are in very short supply. I think there's only like a dozen and a half, like 18 of them that were ever printed. So
Wow.
yeah, cool little trinket there for
And the way to get
somebody.
that is being our 100th subscriber.
Yep.
So like, subscribe, comment below, and yeah, enjoy the shows. I hope you're enjoying them because we're enjoying making them.
Yeah, I'm a little camera shy, but I'm here, and I think I rambled a little bit, but that's
We'll work
okay.
on you. It takes a little bit of practice. I'm
Yeah.
not a camera person. My experience is on the other side of the camera.
Right, and obviously from this, mine too has been behind the camera mostly. Like I got my little producer camera there, but that's about it. So yeah,
All right. So with that, hobby on.
hobby on.
Till next time.
Peace.